All right. Now, I want to let you know, you see the big picture up here. Jeff Moffa was scheduled to give this presentation, but unfortunately, he is under the weather. He is not able to attend, but never fear. We're going to continue with the great content because we have our very own from Auros Knowledge Systems, Sarah Burke and Josh Cullis to present amazing content. There's so much value that we want to make sure you get out of this. So they're going to present Knowledge Aware, the big and expanding picture. So I would like to invite Sarah up first to kick things off. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Amy.
Yes.
All right. All right, yeah, so like Amy said, unfortunately Jeff is not going to be able to join us today, so I'm going to do my best to fill in for him. You all know that he's very enthusiastic about this, so I'll do my best. Yeah, we're hoping that he feels better soon. So this is, Knowledge Aware, the big and expanding picture. We kind of do this in two parts. One is the big picture. I'll start you guys off with that, go through some of the basics, and then I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Josh Cullis, and he'll talk about the expanding picture as well. So, the Knowledge Aware approach is really very unique. And so to kind of set the scene, we'll look at the way we see most organizations handling knowledge management now, and then how that can be improved with the Knowledge Aware approach. So at any organization, we have processes, right? And these processes could be something as simple as onboarding a new employee, or it can be as complex as your entire product development cycle, right? And as we go through the process, we put gates or checkpoints in to check progress, make sure that we're on time, whatever it may be. And inevitably, people learn things and we start to write them down, right? So we've got some design standards in a PDF. Maybe someone learned something critical in one round, so they create a PowerPoint of lessons learned. We've got design checklists in Excel. There's almost always some standard work that goes along with the process, right? All of these different mediums, they're stored in different places. Some are in SharePoint. Something might just be, in someone's personal drive, or if it's even written down at all. And they're also documented at different, levels of granularity. So it's good that we write things down. Of course, it's better than not writing things down at all. But what happens when we have someone going through the process? We typically ask them to search, right? Go find the right information that's actually relevant for what you're working on, figure out what's up to date or potentially out of date, and then maybe you need to talk to someone who worked on it last time because it just wasn't documented. So this method of accessing knowledge is really cognitively loading and very inefficient. But the biggest issue with this, searching the document space is really that there's no connection between the knowledge that was found and how it influenced the process, right? So did I incorporate the lessons learned into the newest design? Did I meet the requirements or take the steps that I needed to meet those requirements? And if I didn't, then what steps did I take to fix that problem? Or what steps did someone else take last time that I might be able to learn from, right? So there's really no connection between the knowledge that was found and how it influenced your process. So we call this, kind of lovingly the library method. All of the information that you need is there, but you have to spend a lot of time searching. And it's very cognitively loading for the searcher and very inefficient. So I guess, there is a new way. You probably all know that. That's why you're here. It's called Knowledge Aware. And so Knowledge Aware is an enterprise-wide approach to continuously collect, deliver, and actively apply trusted knowledge within the flow of work. So you can see, there's a clear difference here. This is no longer about storing knowledge or searching for it, right? If you have been to the conference before, or if you've talked with the IKAA or Auros in the past, then we have kind of an easy analogy to figure out how this has already happened, and that is paper maps that we used to use. A map is a lot like the library method, right? Because it has all of the information that you can need to get from point A to point B, But you have to really search for where you are on the map and where you're trying to go, and then figure out the best way to get there, even though there's numerous ways to get there, and some of them might take you on a 2-hour detour that's not a good use of your time. And there's a lot of other challenges with the map as well, right? It's really only accurate on the day that it's produced. And it can't tell you things like where there's construction or detours. But we have a better system, right? And that better system is navigation. Nobody really uses paper maps anymore because this better system of navigation has replaced it. And so to make the navigation system, they took those maps and they broke them down into meaningful chunks that can be delivered to the user as they're needed, right? So there is a system of metadata and modeling on those map tiles, and that enables the navigation app to get context on the journey you're trying to make and give you only what's needed at the right time. So now you no longer have to search on the map for where you are, figure out where you're trying to go, what the best route forward is. Everything is just provisioned to you as you're driving along. And that is really great, but really the most important part of this is the ability to gain insights from the journey or the process, right? So in this navigation analogy, it's things like construction, traffic, estimated time of arrival. But in an engineering process, it can be things like timing risks or design incompatibilities, manufacturing feasibility, whatever it may be. When you're gaining data on how those processes are being used, you can gain a lot of insights. So in engineering, there's this new concept called the assessment control. This is basically the navigation app for your engineering process, right? This is where engineers or engineering teams come to interact with the knowledge that is relevant for the process that they're working on. So, you're going through, let's say you're approaching a stage gate for a certain product for a certain customer, maybe in a certain region, and you've got the knowledge coming in. So these are the kind of jack icons coming in at the side here. And the knowledge can be all sorts of things. It can be functional knowledge, it can be process knowledge or decision criteria potentially. And importantly, because the knowledge has that system of metadata on it, you're only getting what's needed at the right time. So we're at phase 2 design review, for this certain product. What are the things we need at this point? So that's like the map tiles, right, coming into your navigation app. And it's really a continuous process. So as you continue through your process, there might be new knowledge that is gained. Maybe there's new requirements. Somebody else learned a lesson while they were going through the process. And so as you move through, the assessment control is continually checking for the context and can give you new knowledge as it's available. So the assessment control is, one piece of the puzzle here, and the other is a knowledge packet. So that's those jacks that you saw coming into the assessment or map tiles coming into the navigation app. So a knowledge packet is a granular, modular, actionable unit of knowledge, right? It can have all sorts of things. Usually there's at least a text description. You can have multimedia, links, attachments, formulas, right? Calculations. It can be units of process, units of decision models, but importantly, there's that system of tagging on the knowledge. So it's giving you context for where that knowledge is relevant. And every time a knowledge packet is assessed, we're collecting data on how it's used, so we can use all of that for continuous learning, reporting, and really to gain new insights on the process. So that's the big picture. Next, we're going to go into the expanding picture, so I'm going to ask my colleague Josh to take over.
All right, thank you, Sarah. So like Sarah said, that's the big picture. We're going to now start to walk into some of the things that we're working on from a knowledge-aware perspective, some of the evolution that we see coming here over the next few months, years, however it may be. So we'll start off with kind of taking we'll try to start off. There we go. All right, so we're going to start to walk through some of the things that we've done over the past 5 to 7 years. We've got the knowledge-aware maturity model back in 2016 was introduced, and what that really did is allow us to start putting some definition around this thing we're calling knowledge-aware, right? So we were able to look at workflows, we were able to look at different processes, different experiences, and start to define what it means to make them knowledge-aware. So this maturity model kind of steps through the different levels of maturity of going from the library model, then getting to the point where we're starting to deliver knowledge, collect data around it. So this was something that got introduced in 2016, allowed us to make some good progress. From there, it led to the GPS navigation metaphor. So Sarah went through that and kind of talked a lot about how starting to normalize the process, starting to identify data, get it into different places so that we can start to provide insights. And that was kind of the next step past this knowledge maturity model. Obviously, that example helped us mature the maturity model itself. And that led to the knowledge flows model, which kind of allowed us to identify the three different places that information can come from. So we've got top down, we've got bottom up, and then we have flowing in. So those three different areas, there's different aspects of all those different types of information. How do you get them into your process? How do you start to create this knowledge-aware footprint and start to allow us to learn and continuously improve over time? That led to the knowledge operating system. Sarah went through that one. It then led us to this extended enterprise for knowledge aware. So we had a presentation from General Motors at this 2021 conference that really talked about how you take this concept, you start to build, you start to establish it as a capability at your organization, and then you allow to extend beyond your own enterprise into other areas, whether it be suppliers or customers, and there's a lot of examples that we can go through and kind of talk about how that provides value to organizations. And then last year, we introduced this concept of assessment first. So we were able to take a lot of information from the different implementations that we'd done, a lot of the experiences that we had, and kind of analyze if you approach this knowledge-aware idea in certain ways, how is it most effective? Do you face a lot of obstacles? Do you face not as many obstacles? How difficult are those to overcome when you do face them? And it led to this assessment first idea, where when we approach the knowledge-aware technique from this assessment, we tend to see organizations that face fewer challenges, and then those challenges that they do face are a lot easier to overcome or a lot easier to address as we start to evolve. So that's leading us up to today. And the first thing that we want to talk about from an expanding perspective is an evolution of these maturity models. So we had a general maturity model that was introduced in 2016. We've now started to take that same concept and apply it to specific use cases. So there are a number of different use cases. We'll go through 4 of them here today and talk about how the knowledge-aware approach is really aligned with those particular use cases and how we're starting to produce these maturity models that'll help us the same way that we used the general one. It'll help us to put some definition around in this particular use case. So lessons learned is the first one. How can we actually take lessons learned and make it knowledge aware? Start to get these different use cases at our organizations to be able to capture data in a normalized and reusable way, take that, provide insights. So we've started working on these 4 different use cases. Lessons learned is the first one. Design review is another one. I know there's a lot of people in the room today that actually use Auros for design review processes. Requirements engineering. This is one that's starting to evolve and kind of starting to emerge. So the problem with requirements engineering and the way that it's managed at a lot of different organizations is something that to this point we haven't really seen a great solution for. We've been in some conversations with a number of different groups, and we think that the knowledge-aware approach has this niche within requirements engineering to be able to solve some problems that maybe other approaches or technologies are not able to solve. So we're looking at how do we put together a maturity model for requirements engineering so that we can start to do the same thing that we did with the initial one and really put some definition how to do these things well within the scope of requirements engineering. And then the last one is SmartCAD. We've got some people in the room here today as well that have also been involved in SmartCAD. And same idea. We're looking at taking a maturity model, putting specific definitions around how you can go through the SmartCAD process, make it more knowledge aware, make it more efficient, and start to provide some of these insights for individuals participating in that process. So the second trend and one of the areas that we're starting to focus is identifying roles and how those roles are organized and what benefit you can get from organizing in a certain way versus maybe some of the other ways that we've seen that might have produced some challenges that we can avoid. So one role that we have identified, and it's kind of something that's always been part of what we do, but identifying the importance of it and being able to kind of communicate how that works, is the process architect. So the process architect is going to be someone who understands who's involved in the process. Where does information need to go? When does it need to go there? How does it need to get applied? When it is applied, what type of information and evidence do we need to capture that's showing how it's been applied? And these particular individuals, when you start your implementation and when you start your knowledge-aware journey, they can be extremely important because they kind of are the center of the hub. If we talk about this assessment first process, or the assessment first approach, a lot of times the assessment is centered around the process, design review, lessons learned, SmartCAD. And as we start to understand who's involved, how they're involved, what they need to get, when they need to get, and then the different information that actually needs to get captured of how they apply knowledge, is when we really start to be able to produce these insights and produce the value that knowledge aware is intended to produce. So the process architect is essential at the beginning. You can accomplish knowledge aware benefits without one, but your ability to do it is expedited significantly by having one, having them positioned well, understanding how everything that they're responsible for fits together. The next one is the subject matter expert. This is a pretty straightforward one, right? It's the people who have the actual knowledge themselves. If we can get them capturing it in things like knowledge packets, get it delivered into assessments so that people can start to apply it, they're then able to understand how that information has been applied and the challenges that people may have with it. There's a lot of benefit that can come out of that particular scenario. So the subject matter experts are also essential when we're starting off our project. Not quite as impactful as the process architect, because the process architect is pushing the information around and identifying where it goes. But obviously you can't deliver knowledge if we don't have subject matter experts that are capturing it. And then the last role for this second trend is the sponsor. This is pretty straightforward. It's much more efficient. It's much easier to make progress on initiatives or on projects if you have an effective sponsor. Right? There are certain things from a political perspective that are just required. Not having a sponsor makes those things very difficult to achieve. Having an effective sponsor obviously will make it more efficient, more beneficial. And then the third trend for 2023 that we want to talk about is generative AI. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with ChatGPT, familiar with, there are some things that I think Microsoft is coming out with called Copilot. So there are all these different generative AI technologies, and we're getting asked questions about how does that impact knowledge aware? How does that impact softwares like Auros IQ? And I think there are a lot of different things that we can go into. The first thing that we'll talk about is that it's pretty clear, and I think that it's fairly reasonable to assume that generative AI is going to be part of all software applications, including Auros IQ, at least that are in this type of domain. Right? There's so much value that can come out of including those types of things in a product that it's hard to see a way that it doesn't make itself, or hard to see how it doesn't make its way into products that are in this particular industry. So that's the first part. There are some downfalls with the generative AI. So there's black box knowledge, or I guess logic, that's in it. A lot of times you don't know how the results that have been produced are being produced. So it's difficult to take those things at certain points in time and actually harness the results. In addition to that, there is a lot of examples of hallucination that are taking place. So the generative AI is going out, finding results, finding information, and it may not necessarily be that accurate, right? So as those algorithms start to be tuned and the knowledge starts to become, or the information starts to become more efficient, then I anticipate that we will see those hallucinations go down. But right now, there are a couple of different things that are presenting some challenges, and we do see those things being solved here in the future. Right now, they have not quite been addressed yet. And then the last thing from an expanding perspective with the generative AI is the idea that there's a lot of value behind the technology, but it still is a requirement to have clean data, right? If you have a lot of information, it's not clean, it's not sensical, it doesn't actually meet the needs of the generative AI, then these black box and hallucination challenges can present themselves even more frequently. So knowledge aware, the whole idea behind it is identifying information, capturing it efficiently, putting it in a normalized format that allows you to then go out and use things like generative AI to provide insights. So obviously, we're strong believers here that knowledge aware is the way to produce those data sets that allow you to take advantage of things like AI. That is the conclusion of the presentation. Any questions?
I am checking the app at the same time. I don't see any questions here. We're kind of checking within each session. Hopefully you figured out where the agenda is. You have to swipe left to click on the session, and then there's a little green, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little green bar that says ask a question. And we'll also check the feed real quick. Yeah, I'm not seeing any. And I imagine you'll have more questions as we get more, into each session. Sure. So not really that surprised to see that. So that's cool. It just gives us a few extra minutes for our transition, for our break, for chatting and networking before we move into the breakout session. So I think that works, yeah? Thanks absolutely. So much, Josh and you. Sarah. Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, as I previewed there, we are going to head to breakout sessions next. They start at 2 o'clock, and right here will be the advanced session. So feel free to just stay right in this room. We do have some beverages back in the corner. Restrooms are there. Of course, you can feel free to wander out into the hallways, visit the booths. The introductory sessions will happen in the atrium study, and Brittany has kindly positioned herself to help guide and wave you, but I'll give you a little preview. You'll head out the exit door and then turn right down the long hall, and she'll be standing right there at the corner. She was explaining that it's going to be a left turn there, but I don't think there's a sign. So look for Brittany. She'll help guide you to the atrium study. Now you can feel free to move back and forth and between the advanced and the introductory breakout sessions. There's nothing to say you have to stick with all the same for each of the 3 breakout sessions that do again start at 2 p.m. In the introductory session, first up, it's all about fundamentals. That's the topic of the first one. And for the advanced session happening right here, it's about a knowledge-aware approach to lessons learned. All right, so those are your topics. Again, you can check your agenda too. Please do find this session on your mobile app and click it to rate the session. We'd love to hear from you. Of course, Jeff wishes he could be here, but it just wasn't possible. So we're delighted that Sarah and Josh stepped in. So why don't you go ahead and take a break now, and we'll see you in the breakouts. Thanks, everyone.